If we can learn as a community, if we can learn not to smoke in the car with our kids, if we can learn not to drink and drive, we can learn not to exercise our frustrations and our angers and our feelings of lack of control through violence.
That's great. When you converged the two organizations in 2015, did you found that like your way of working, your methodology, your practice changed or evolved at all, or did it kind of cohesively, I guess, sync to what you were doing similarly before?
So the services offered were very different because sexual assault support services was doing hospital calls and doing in-office support services and court accompaniments, and a safe place was, operating a shelter and doing limited court accompaniments and no 24-hour. Like their hotline was 24 hours, but it was mostly for shelter assessments.
Okay.
Right. So we filled in each other's gaps. So what we do know is that people who are experiencing domestic violence will sometimes have sexual violence in their life, and vice versa. So it was really hard not offering both sets of services, and it became much more seamless for survivors accessing us to not be bounced back and forth. And we also found that our responses and people seeking services increased by 33% within the first 6 months of the merger.
Okay.
Operation covering this section of the state. Haven, in our 3 locations in Rochester, Portsmouth, and Salem, and our undisclosed safe shelter, we serve 427,000 residents of the state of New Hampshire. So we serve the largest section of the state. So it's the largest responding domestic and sexual violence program in the state. Coos County looks like, that must be larger, but it's less populated, and it's a bigger geography. So their services differ from ours a little bit because of their geography, but the most densely populated spot and the most services happen here.
And then financially, was it a third comes from?
A third
insurance?
comes from federal grants through the Violence Against Women Act and the Victims of Violent Crime. And there is some state funding. So the state just recently reinstituted funding for all of the crisis centers. So there's $500,000 per year for now. We're going to go through another budget cycle next year that is spread out among all the crisis centers. So it seems like, $500,000, but then you split it up between 13 crisis centers. Absolutely. It doesn't go as far as you think.
Funding from the towns. Does that make up that like 1/3, or
part of the third?
That's a part of the third.
That's part of the third. Yeah. So some towns are very generous. Like, we understand the work that you do for our town, that you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and an on-call service is, has an expense to it. It just, you can't maintain something 24/7, 365 days a week without some expense. So there are some towns that understand that and compensate accordingly, and some that don't. Personal information. However, we do collect data about the services that we provide.
Okay.
So when we make contact with somebody, so when someone either calls on the hotline, or a hospital calls us and we go meet a survivor at the hospital, or another way people get in touch with us is if they go to court on their own to seek a restraining order, for instance, or perhaps their partner is suing them for custody, or has just filed for divorce and is seeking custody and is accusing them, trying to get on the front end of being the primary aggressor, which is something that's a term that you hear a lot in court.
Yeah.
The court will offer people seeking these types of legal remedies, will offer them an opportunity to talk to an Haven advocate. Special subsets that require that you want to have an awareness of. But truly, intimate partner violence and sexual violence, that's all window dressing.
Yeah.
It's a power and control. And the power and control happens in LGBTQ relationships, in military relationships, in same-sex relationships, in elderly people, and in people who have been dating 3 months. It happens across the board. And so our shelter program is a program.
Okay.
So when someone, and oftentimes it is a very, very rare occurrence for someone to be a first-time caller or the first time they've ever reached out to us be the moment they screen into shelter.
Okay.
Oftentimes people have been building up to leaving. We know, statistically speaking, that the most lethal time for someone in a relationship that includes intimate partner violence is at the moment they leave. That is the most dangerous time, because that is the moment where their partner has lost the power and control they've been exercising over the other person. And once they've lost that power and control, often the violence escalates. Just escalates through the stratosphere. And so planning an exit takes time. And sometimes you don't have the time to plan the exit. We'll get calls from the hospital and somebody is going to be in the hospital for a number of days. We have worked with clients that have had to go to rehab because of the severity of the violence that they've experienced, and from there they have made the choices not to go back, and it's not safe to go back. So coming to shelter in most cases takes some planning. Planning to exit is a methodical and a premeditated thing to do. What's great is if people are able to, and we help them in safety planning, where they are now, where can they go to be safer. We would never suggest anyone stay in a place that's not safe for them. And if it's appropriate to leave, it's appropriate to leave. But we will help people gather, do you have access to your Social Security card? Do you have a driver's license? Do you have a passport? Do you have your birth certificate? Do you have your children's birth certificates? Do you have their Social Security cards? So sometimes there's not the time to gather any of those things, even surreptitiously, and you just need to go for survival. But if there's an opportunity through some planning to get a hold of some of that, it's going to make things exponentially better in starting over. So part of your training is recognizing what's going on around you. And I have been on a hospital call when I'm working with somebody at the hospital and their perpetrator showed up. And that's a different situation altogether. And so now I know who the perpetrator is. We've made eye contact. They've seen me. I've seen them. And so I'm going to want to take precautions going back out to my car. Maybe I want to call security at the hospital and say, I'm feeling unsafe. Can you please escort me to my car? They do it all the time. Doesn't raise any alarm bells for anybody, and you're not breaking confidentiality, getting someone to walk you out to your car with a flashlight. Not a problem. We do take safety precautions, and because we are an agency that helps people who are experiencing stalking, we know what it looks like before it starts. So everybody's really, really well trained. And we know, because we're referring other people who are experiencing this to services, we're the first people that know how to get those services. So, yeah. it's dangerous. It's not,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not like delivering a pizza. Like it can be dangerous, and it might not be either. The possibility is there, but the probability is not always there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the awareness is constantly there. Advocates are always on the lookout and always trying to discern. And that's part of the training. For instance, if somebody is at the hospital or comes in here, if you notice the poster right behind you is our interpretation services.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes into the office and they've brought a friend with them and the friend is interpreting, we're going to probably call the interpretation services and get a third party here and try to have a confidential moment with that survivor. If somebody's at the hospital and there's another person with them interpreting for them, we're going to try to insist that the hospital get an interpreter out there, because what we don't know is if the person doing the interpreting is the perpetrator or been hired by the perpetrator. Which is something that happens with human trafficking a lot, is that a handler will come in. The pimp won't come in, but the pimp's handler will come in and be reporting back. So we're trained to look for those vulnerable places and try to fill in the classroom. We have, if you look on the back of your coloring book, another way people get involved is we are supported by the Rotary Clubs of Dover, Portsmouth, and Rochester.
Okay.
This coloring book is given to all the students that go through our programming in K1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And at the end of the programming, the kids are given an opportunity to draw a picture of something they learned today. And then we collect all those pictures, and our educators sift through them and choose some of the ones that really exemplify the programming and incorporate them into the coloring books. So if you look at the bottom of each of the pages in the corner, you can see the name of the child that drew that, the school they went to, and what grade they're in, and this is what they got out of the programming. So these are kids inspiring the next kids. It's a couple of years old now, and what we've always offered support services in the way of support groups. So talk groups, and we have these groups, these support groups for people who are experiencing domestic violence now, people who have survived childhood sexual violence, for parents whose children have been sexually assaulted. So these are for non-offending family members. We have adult sexual assault survivor groups. But for some people, being in a room with other survivors is not, is triggering for them. And that's not the way they want to connect. That's not the way that is most helpful in their healing. And we discovered that a lot of people really need to move and have found healing through movement. So we partnered with Satya, which is Seacoast Area Teachers of Yoga in Action. And you can check their website out. They're amazing. And they do, so it's a collaborative of yoga teachers on the Seacoast who then volunteer their services after receiving some very specific and niche training to specific groups of community members, and we are one of them. So survivors of trauma, and our it's called HEY, H-E-Y, Haven Empowered Yoga. But Satya also does yoga for people with developmental disabilities. Also does yoga with people with limited mobility. So they have this wide reach, and we are the recipients of their wanting to provide a specific type of yoga experience. So when people screen into our yoga program, then they get 8 weeks of yoga, and we have 2 locations. And once you've been screened into our yoga program, we'll disclose the location to you. It's a private location, and only people who have been screened in the program can go.
Okay.
You're not required to go to every class, but you can go to, it's 8 weeks, 2 classes a week, so you could potentially go to 16 classes if you wanted to, or you could drop into 3 if that's all that you want to. That's okay too. Every yoga class is a Kripalu style yoga with a trained certified yoga teacher, and also a trained advocate from Haven at the yoga class, participating in the class, not sitting out observing,
Okay.
but being part of the class. So if at any time through movement, which can be really triggering to people's emotions, if somebody wants to talk or just be with an advocate, there's always an advocate available on site during those classes. And the first 8 weeks are free, and we often do the second 8 weeks too for people
Okay.
on their healing journey. And then after that, we ask for a donation of what you can afford.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So, and we also have started art and music therapy.
Okay.
So people experience their healing
Yeah.
in very, very different ways, and we know that through movement, through art, through music, through talk, sometimes just through being present
Mhm.
is a very healing thing. So we try to offer as many ways for people to access what works.
Mhm.
And what we know is that when people are involved with the police at for a call for domestic violence, the probability that they will continue to be involved and cooperative with the police if they are the victim decreases within the first 3 to 7 days
Mhm.
after the crime has occurred.
Mhm.
Because perpetrators are released from jail, they make bail, the honeymoon cycle of like,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry, that wasn't me, I didn't mean to do that, blame it on my anger, blame it on the alcohol, blame it on the fact that I lost my job, blame it on the kids are really stressing me out, and I love you, and this is not who we are, and what we know is that people oftentimes, want the violence to end, but they don't want the relationship to end. So perpetrators manipulate that and will, work their way back into the relationship again, and that's when building the case becomes harder and harder. So I started working for SAS back in 2012.
Okay.
And prior to that, I had been a volunteer at other agencies and had a heart for the work prior.
Okay.
So yeah, I started working actually as a media person for SAS, and then became an advocate, a trained advocate after that, and then evolved into a couple of different roles. Because now I also do, as Haven's advocate, I serve on the commission, the Oversight Commission of Children's Services,
Okay.
which is the oversight group that manages the Office of the Child Advocate, which is new for the state of New Hampshire. So we had some really tragic deaths of children who were under the care of DCYF.
Mhm.
So what we didn't have in the state of New Hampshire was an Office of the Child Advocate, which provides that check and balance against DCYF. So I am the voice of the crisis centers
Okay.
on that commission. So I gave you some of the swag.
Yes.
So our swag is developed for very specific reasons. So this sticker that you have right there.
This one?
So nope,
Oh,
the
this
one
one.
in your
Okay.
left hand. Yep. So that sticker, hopefully you see that in every bathroom you go to on the Seacoast. And if you don't, let us know, because that's
Okay.
another way to get involved. Is put a sticker on. Swag is very important.
Okay.
The card that you have. You have 2 cards. One is a hotline card that kind of looks like the business cards.
Yes.
And that has all our information, how you can get in touch with us. You could give that to somebody to say, I'm really concerned about you, and these people can help. Or you might keep that yourself. I don't know. It's a really good way to get in touch with us.
Okay.
However, it has our name on it.
Mhm.
It has a hotline. It says what we do.
Yeah.
If you are in an unsafe situation at home, it might not be helpful for you to to have a hotline card for a domestic and sexual violence crisis center in your purse, in your pocketbook, in your notebook, where your perpetrator lives with you and wants to know, what the hell are you doing calling the domestic and sexual violence crisis center? That could escalate things for you and make it worse. This card is what we call a discreet card. It doesn't have our name on it. It's kind of hard.
Mhm.
If you fold it in half, it becomes the exact size of the mini pockets in jeans.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because it's very hard, it slides underneath this part of your shoe
Oh wow. Okay.
and doesn't disintegrate because it's kind of got a little shine on it.
does. Yeah.
So it's made specifically to hide.
Okay.
The pens, and did I give you a chapstick?
Yes. I
Okay,
was
great.
just rolling everywhere,
No.
so I put it in my bag.
No, I'm glad you did. So the pens and the chapstick are things that everybody gives away.
Mhm.
My dentist gives out chapstick.
Yeah.
We get really good chapstick though, like really good chapstick. But pens are things like in your bag or your backpack right now, you probably have 3 or 4 pens
Mhm.
from various places you've been or places that you haven't even been, but your roommate or your best friend left it on the desk and you just threw it in your bag by accident. Like, I bet if you dumped your bag out, you have a pen from somewhere. You have no idea how you got that. However, that is a good way for us to get our hotline out there. It doesn't raise alarm bells. If you are in an unsafe situation at home or in your dating relationship, having a bunch of pens that have a bunch of different names on them never raises an eyebrow for people. Like, your perpetrator is probably not going to go through your pen collection in the same way they might go through your phone, you know, and check what's in your bag or who you've been talking to. I see you called so-and-so. You think about our services on a seesaw. We have on one end of the seesaw, you've got the advocacy services who are working with people who have already suffered. And on the other end of the seesaw, you have the prevention services. So you're trying to prevent not only these behaviors, but also trying to give the heads up for vulnerabilities, right? And teach people about personal body safety and getting along with each other and what are healthy boundaries. And we would much prefer that the heavier end of the seesaw be on prevention services, because that's our goal, is to eliminate domestic and sexual violence in our communities. But right now the seesaw leans much more heavily in the advocacy, on the advocacy side of people needing the services. So our ultimate goal is to tip the seesaw so that we have more prevention educators and more prevention people out in the world doing this work than we need advocates. So that's the ultimate goal, is to keep growing those prevention services and the training and the sexual harassment prevention trainings and the workplace readiness trainings and the and the sexual assault response training, so that we recognize when these behaviors are beginning in other people or ourselves and stop it. Offices. This Portsmouth office, the Rochester office, and the Salem office are all located in very public places. So right now, you're sitting on the 3rd floor of the Optima Bank building. You're across the street from Patty's International Pub, which is a very popular restaurant, just American pub food, not very expensive. And so a lot of people go there. It's not like it's a high-end restaurant or, something that's inaccessible to the masses. Around the corner from you, within striking distance, like I could throw a baseball and hit it, is a food court that has a juicery and a soup place and a pizza place. The post office is over there. So there's a lot of reasons to be in this space on Pease other than to be here. In our Rochester office, we are located right close to a Rite Aid, to a Wendy's, to a pizza place. We are behind the Spalding High School. The rec department for Rochester is located in the same building that we're in, as is the senior center and a food pantry. There are a lot of reasons to be in that area, in that 2-block area, than just us. In Salem, our office is located on the 2nd floor of an L-shaped mini mall area that has a yoga studio, an insurance agency, a pizza parlor, an ice cream parlor, and a couple other, very, very frequented drop-in kind of businesses. So lots of reasons why you might be there. So many ways to get involved. So yes, some of the most heavily involved people are the volunteer advocates, because that takes a significant amount of commitment. You've got to go through the 35-hour training program, plus the 1-hour screening to get into the program, plus the exit interview, and then your commitment to doing the work, which is 4 shifts a month. It's 3 to 4 shifts a month, plus we ask you to do 6 hours of professional development over the course of the year. People who do that are very interested in the work, very committed to the work, and it, and that's where their service to community comes through. We have outreach volunteers too, and they are amazing. So we try to get out into the community at things like the Dover Apple Harvest Festival.
Okay.
We were just at Rochester Pride. We have a presence at Portsmouth Pride. We are at all of the health fairs in the area run by the Seacoast area, the different health networks. So we work with Exeter Hospital Health Network, with Goodwin Community, and First with Families First, and there's one up at Frisbee Memorial too. So there are these community health fairs. There are community access to recovery days. So when the recovery community is doing an outreach program, we're there. So that's a lot of tabling, and that's a lot of providing 3 to 4 hours of public spaces for people to come join us. We were just at National Night Out. We go to the children's festivals, Portsmouth Children's Festival, Somersworth Children's Festival, Salem. So all of those kind of events, we have outreach volunteers who come do those, staff those tables for us, which is awesome. Handing out brochures, talking to people about the services that we offer, getting them hooked up with somebody who can help them if they need services. So it's another way to volunteer. We have a board of directors that is all volunteer, all community members. There's 17 of them right now who volunteer their time and talents to helping navigate, the agency through the community, and providing a check and balance on the executive director and helping maintain the financial solvency of the agency. We have a volunteer core of people who are part of our development committee who just like to do fundraisers for us. So sometimes you'll see on Facebook that someone's doing a fundraiser for their birthday.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's another way people get involved. Like, I'm going to do a fundraiser for my birthday, and they raise like $350 as a fundraiser for Haven, and it raises awareness about the agency and allows people to connect to the agency in a way that's very non-threatening and doesn't require a lot of work from people. Some people just that's not their jam.
Yeah.
They would rather write a check, and we love those people. They're awesome. They are great too. We will be celebrating our 40th anniversary of delivering services to the Seacoast this coming October. So it'll be a big event coming up, and we hope that people will come. That's another way to get involved. Just come to an event, listen to a speaker,